You're watching Africa News, bringing you the top stories on the continent this hour. The seeds of genocide are there. The warning concerning the Central African Republic from a UN official today as he urges robust efforts to stop violence, which killed at least 8 people overnight. Ugandan troops are fighting in South Sudan against rebels, confirms President Yoweri Museveni. This as fresh details emerge of brutal ethnic killings in the world's newest nation. And the number of lions in West Africa has drastically declined, according to a new study. Conservationists warn the entire population could soon become extinct. Hello and welcome. Firstly, the seeds are there for a genocide. The grave message concerning the Central African Republic from a senior UN official today. John Ging, Director of UN Humanitarian Affairs, urged a more robust international effort to halt deadly violence, which left at least 8 people dead overnight. Now, there has been some calm in the country since rebel-turned-leader Michel Djotodia resigned almost a week ago. But despite this, reports of sporadic violence have persisted in Bangui.
The stakes are extremely high. It has all the elements that we have seen elsewhere in places like Rwanda and Bosnia. The elements are there, the seeds are there for a genocide. There's no question about that.
Well, meanwhile, dozens of Rwandan peacekeepers arrived in the Central African Republic this Thursday. Rwanda has pledged more than 800 troops towards the African mission, working to stabilise the nation as it teeters on the brink of anarchy. Aid from Rwanda is particularly important as the international community says it's keen to prevent the country from becoming a repeat of the 1994 genocide in Rwanda. Joseph Zabamwita is a spokesman for the Rwandan army.
We do this 20 years after the genocide against the Tutsi, when the international community abandoned Rwandans, but it has been resolved by Rwandans that whatever happened should not happen again.
In other news on the continent, the Nigerian President, Goodluck Jonathan, has fired his military high command, charged with leading the battle against Boko Haram insurgents. Now, no official reason has yet been given, but there are mounting concerns about the military's inability to end the Islamist-led insurgency in northern Nigeria. Our African specialist, Nicolas Jamin, has the details.
No official reason has been given, but it comes after several setbacks in the north against the Boko Haram jihadists. And, of course, the UN saying that more than 1,200 people have been killed since the month of May. On Tuesday, again, you had a car bomb attack in the city of Maiduguri, which left dozens dead. Yesterday, you had 4 Nigerian soldiers who were killed as they chased Boko Haram fighters into Cameroon. So basically, Goodluck Jonathan telling the military chiefs, you have failed against Boko Haram. But more importantly, he's telling everyone, reminding everyone that he's still the boss in Nigeria.
Ugandan troops are fighting with South Sudan's government against rebels in the world's newest nation. The confirmation came from Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni as fresh details of ethnic killings emerged this Thursday. Speaking at a summit in Angola, President Museveni said there'd been casualties on both sides during recent battles with rebel troops. Crisis talks aimed at a ceasefire remain deadlocked over rebel demands for the release of political prisoners.
This undated amateur footage shows a Ugandan army contingent crossing the border into South Sudan, proving the presence of Ugandan troops on South Sudanese soil. Ugandan troops deployed in war-ravaged South Sudan 5 days after fighting began last month, but so far the regime was insisting they were there to help evacuate Ugandan citizens and were not engaged in combat.
Now it is common knowledge that the UPDF is engaged in combat operations, as revealed by the president in Angola. We are operating under a bilateral mandate.
The initial decision to send troops across the border was made without the approval of Parliament, sparking criticism from some lawmakers and prompting a special sitting of the House. The Parliament finally endorsed the government's decision on troop deployment to help President Salva Kiir fight the rebels led by Riek Machar.
It's good that the motion has been passed and that our presence is now has been ascended to by Parliament. I think that will give us more comfort working on the ground.
Securing the commercial road between Juba and Kampala is one of the principal missions of the 1,200 Ugandan soldiers in South Sudan. The army is also considering sending reinforcements, more troops which may change the balance of power on the ground.
Still talking South Sudan, Human Rights Watch released a report on the nation earlier today which confirms ethnic attacks against civilians are occurring. Jahan Henry, a senior researcher with the organisation, explains some more of those findings.
I am just back from Juba. We were there for over 2 weeks, focusing our preliminary investigations on what occurred in Juba and also what occurred in Bor, as other key towns were not accessible. Bor was not accessible, but we were able to go to places where the IDPs have fled and interviewed people who witnessed the fighting there as well. In Juba, what we found was very clear targeting of civilians on an ethnic basis, particularly between December 15th and 19th. In a single most serious incident, we documented a case where between 200 and 300 Nuer men of a range of ages were shot in a police station in one of the neighborhoods in Juba. And we were able to speak to several survivors of that. Many stories of targeted house-to-house killings, many arrests and mistreatment and torture in detention.
Jahan, as your report tells it, it's not only civilians, is it? It's also NGOs who are being targeted, and we can imagine that's hindering efforts to help.
Correct. So, I mean, I should just point out again that it's both ethnicities. It is not solely ethnic Nuers who are targeted, but also in Bor there were ethnic Dinka who were targeted in the fighting by rebel forces. But correct, NGOs, aid groups, humanitarian supplies, medical supplies have also been affected and targeted. There are issues around access. So we've called on both parties to the conflict to provide unfettered access to all people in need. And this is a really important point. We've also called for an independent international investigation into all the crimes that have been committed against civilians to date. There have been widespread abuses everywhere. As the conflict spreads, abuses against civilians as well spread. We feel the first step toward justice and a lasting peace will be to investigate exactly who did what to whom.
Jahan Henry of Human Rights Watch there. And finally, the number of lions in West Africa has drastically declined, with as few as 400 remaining in the region. That's according to a study carried out in 17 countries from Senegal to Nigeria. Well, the findings by Panthera warn that with under 250 mature lions of breeding age, the entire population could become extinct.
Simon Seme's cows graze on the outskirts of Nairobi National Park. His 10 children are reliant on their meat and milk, but the cows are prized by others too. Lions. There are over 40 of the big cats in the park, but it isn't fenced, so they are able to prey on Simon's livestock.
My cows went to the river. When they were having water at the river, they were attacked by a lion and one was killed.
Here in one of Africa's fastest growing cities, humans and wildlife are fighting for space. Last year, Simon's neighbours massacred 6 lions after the cats killed some livestock. No one has been arrested. Thousands of lions have also been poisoned in revenge attacks. Baited meat is left out for them to eat. Not only are they being killed in huge numbers, but the areas where they used to roam free have been turned into farmland as Kenya's population grows. Conservationists warn there'll be no lions left in Kenya unless urgent action is taken.
Lions across the country have been declining at quite a rapid rate. We used to have about 15,000 lions about 15 years ago. Today there are fewer than 2,000. And we suspect that the pesticide poisoning of lions as a result of human-wildlife conflict, so it's retaliation because of human-wildlife conflict, we suspect that it's really driving the population of lions almost to extinction.
Kenya's economy needs tourists. They bring in over $1 billion a year, and the industry employs thousands of people. Lions are one of the biggest draws. But the farmers here, whose livestock keeps getting eaten, don't see any of that financial benefit, and the lions are pushing them deeper into poverty. They say over 1,200 cows, goat and sheep were killed by lions in 2012 in this region alone.
The key is we need to find ways for rural people to benefit economically from wildlife so that they have a reason to protect it and cherish it and value it. As it is, their only motivation is to get rid of it.
As the human population continues to grow, the lion population is in danger of dying out. The two have lived side by side for generations here in Kenya. But as cities grow, the fight for space will only get worse. And that could spell the end for this great symbol of East Africa.
Well, you're up to date. More from your Africa team tomorrow, but it's over to you, Chris.
Thanks very much, Rochelle. We'll be back very shortly with the headlines. Do stay with us here on Live from Paris.